Hi, and welcome to Stalking the Wild Autoharp. This edition for newbies is the second in a series about finding the right melody chords for a tune that you want to play. And if you recall, in the last edition, I had you make flashcards for all of the buttons that are on your harp. And these are an example of 3, and we're going to use them in just a minute. So it will show you the application of what we did last week in what we're going to do this week. So I'll get to those in a minute. For today's lesson, I have drawn out the first 2 bars of a fiddle tune called Whiskey Before Breakfast. It's one that you will hear all over the place in Autoharp land and in fiddle land and in So I'm going to teach you how to find the melody chords for these first 2 bars, okay? First of all, if you read music, you're going to know this stuff already. If you don't, just hang with me. It's always a good idea to figure out at least the staff. You probably remember back in elementary school, every good boy does fine. And FACE, which translates out to a rising alphabet of A through G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it just repeats over and over again. Okay, so A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then going downward, A, G, F, E, D, etc., 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 down. It falls outside the span of this series to teach you how to read music, but for this case, let's say you found a book that's got the musical lines in it, and you can make out, well, that's a D, that's an E, that's an F, sharp, actually. We'll get to that in a minute, okay? But up here we have what's called the guitar chords, okay, or the rhythm chords. These are less than you need to play the melody, but it's what you play when you're playing, just strumming along with the chords, and you'd be playing. Okay, so D, G, D, A7. Okay, that's all we're going to do today. All right, but that's clearly not the melody. And if I tried to pick the melody just with those, I'd get. That's not the melody. That won't do. You need more, and you have to get into this, what I call toggling, okay? So you're playing more chords, all right? So how do you find that? Okay, well, the first thing I want you to do is you go to your flashcards, and you know, okay, this is the key of D. We know that because the first chord is D. The key signature has 2 sharps in it, okay? And if you go to the last note in the song, you will see that it's a D. So all that adds up to key of D. So you go and you grab your 3 flashcards for the 3 main buttons for the key of D, okay, which is your 1, your 4, and your 5 chord. And they are D, G, and A7 respectively, okay, which is 1, 4, and 5, all right? Now, the first thing you do is you go and you get your pencil and you're going to write in all of the chord tones, okay? So, in this case, here's the chord, okay? So you're going to start with your chord tones and you're going to mark all the notes that are in that D chord. So you go and you look at your chord bar button, D for the D chord. That's the prevailing chord for this first 4 beats of the song, is D major, all right? So every note that is in this line of notes that is in the D chord, we're going to mark with a D, okay? And we learn that every D, F sharp, and A are in the D chord. So we're going to mark those. D, D, because that's an F sharp. That space makes it an F, and this sharp makes it an F sharp. All right, here's an A. All right, that one is going to be marked with a D, as is the next one. All right, and this is yet another further different A, and so we're going to mark that one with a D. All right, and then this note is in the D chord, and this note is in the D chord. That's another F sharp, just like this one. And here, D. All right, now we're going to continue with our chord tones. Before we fill in the blanks, we're going to continue with our chord tones. Chord changes here, all right, to a G chord. So we get our G card for our G button. And for the G chord, we're going to mark every note in the G chord that is in these, all right? So the first note, what note is that? It's a G. Is that in this chord? Yes, it is. So we mark it, okay? We mark it G. Okay, what about this note? That's a B. Okay, so we're going to mark it G because it's in the G chord. And then this note is a G again, and so it's a G. Okay? Now, chord changes back to D here. All right? So we get our D again. So anything that is a D, an F sharp, or an A for the duration of this chord is going to be marked with a D. All right? And it turns out that all three of them are in, just like all three of these were in the G chord, all three of these are in the D chord, like that. All right? Now the chord changes again to an A7. And so for the duration of that A7 chord, everything that's in the A7 chord is going to get marked A7, or to save space, we're going to say A. All right, it's shorthand for A7. Okay, so for these two beats, or these 8/16 notes, we are going to fill in these. We're going to check these and find out which of these are on this card, and then we're going to write an A below those. Okay, so it's this one. That's an E. What about this one? Well, that's a D, and D isn't in the chord. Okay, so we leave it blank. Then we go back to E again, and that one's going to be marked A. Okay, F sharp, that's not in the chord. That's not in the chord, so leave it blank. All right, here's a G. That's in the chord. Okay, so we're going to mark that with an A. Back to the F sharp, no. Here's an E, that gets marked with A. And the D is a no. All right, so now look at how many of the notes are in the main rhythm chords. This is what I call the 75% rule. All right, generally with a melody, 75 to 80% of the notes that fall under the main chord are going to be in that main chord. All right, and here we certainly see that. Here, 100% of the notes that fall under the main chord are in the chord. Same thing here. 100% of the notes that fall under that chord are in the chord. All right, so here it's about 50%, half of them. Every other one, as a matter of fact. So what we do next is we mark a blank to be filled in for every note that doesn't have a melody chord written yet. All right, and so down here it's that one, and that one, and that one, and that one. All right? Now, it falls to just fill in those blanks, okay? Here's where we have to go outside the main chord to get the note. So for this note, we have to go outside the main chord. All right? So we're going to use one of the other two because we have already determined that between these three cards, between these three chords, the 1, the 4, and the 5 chord, the D, the G, and the A7, we have all of our do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do notes, all right? And so we just have to find which ones to use. If you're using the D chord, and we've already determined it's not in the D chord, it's going to be on one of these other ones, okay? So it's really that easy, and we're going to fill it in. But for you diatonic players, you're already done, all right? Because on a diatonic, all you're going to do is you're going to pick up the chord bar for these dashes and play with an open button, okay? That's the difference between diatonic and chromatic playing, and that's why I happen to have my diatonic out right here, because when you play this tune, notice that I'm not toggling, I'm just pumping the button up and down. Okay, so on all those notes where I have a dash, I just open the chord bar up. All right, so that's the way it works on a diatonic. But if you're playing a chromatic, you have to play what's called closed chord and what I call toggling, okay? Which means you have to leave your main button for a brief instant and then go back to it, and then leave it and go back to it for all the notes that are in the button, okay? So we have to find it. We have to go through and fill in the blanks. So we already know it's not in the D chord, so we're going to set that right here. So this E, where is it found? It's found here in the A7 chord, all right? So we're going to write A7 there, or for shorthand, we'll write A. And the A chord would actually work there, all right? And then here's a G. That's found in either one. So both would be an appropriate choice. You can try them and decide. However, since you just played the A7 here, it's going to be easier to use the same button that you just did, and so put an A7 there too. All right? And actually, I have room, so I'm going to put the little 7s there. Hopefully you can see that on the video. All right? And then we have a bunch of D chords. Here's a B. Where is that found? It's here in the G chord. That's the only place. All right? So we're going to use a G there. All right? And then we have a G here, okay? And we've already determined that that's in both of these chords, but we just used it in the D chord, and so, or in the G chord, so we're going to use a G again there, all right? And then we have an E, so that's here in the A chord, and so we'll use an A there. All right, and so on through. Here we have a D. All right, that's found where? It's in the G chord. Now you see, we're using the A chord. All right, but that's not in that chord, and so we have a D note, and that's in the D chord. It's also in the home chord, the D chord, like that. So you could try either one in order to find it. All right? And I'm going to choose the D chord here because right here we're going to use an F sharp, and that's also in the D chord. All right? So all of these non-chord tones. They're non-chords because they're called non-chord tones because these are not in the main chord for that duration of that chord. All right? So the non-chord tones are up to conjecture as to which one is best when they're in both. Okay? So you can mess around and try it different ways, find out what's easier to finger and what sounds best to your ear. All right? But I'm going to choose a D for that and the D for that. All right? And here we've got an F sharp, which is also in the D, and a D, which is in the D. All right? So let's test our work. All right? We're going to play this nice and slow, and for the sake of testing it, we're just going to pinch the notes or pluck the notes. We're not going to try to play them fast. All right? And I'm going to play them all closed chord style. Okay, so we have that's what's written there. And it's pretty easy to play. Okay? And I only use the G in these few little places here. All right? So, that is how you find your melody chords from the rhythm chords and the musical notes, okay? I still have yet to show you how to do it by ear, all right? Which is harder, which is why you might want to learn how to read the musical notes. Even if you don't read the rhythm yet, learn how to read the staff. It's elementary school music, okay? So that you can figure out the sequence of notes, okay? It's a great thing. Musical notation is... People write all these things called tab for instruments, thinking it makes it easier to read for them. This is universal, and it goes from instrument to instrument to instrument to instrument. It's easier because you don't have to relearn a different system for every instrument you play. So, in any case, this is how you figure out those melody notes. So when you download a tune, you know, or you open up a book and there's the chords and the notes, you don't go, oh my gosh. You've got it right here. Now, my name is Hal Weeks. This video series called Stalking the Wild Autoharp is for you, and it is completely free. If you are benefiting from it, I would appreciate your support to keep it going. And to that end, I have a Patreon page. patreon.com/HalWeeks, and that allows you to become a participating patron of this series for $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month, and on up. And you get cool stuff and access to downloads and music that you wouldn't normally get here. My website is halweeks.com. I teach lessons privately via the internet, through Skype, through Google. I'm going to be looking at another one very soon. And that will allow us to do some one-on-one time. I can give you some more focused attention, you know, on melody playing or whatever it is that you want to learn about. You know, so until the next time, my name is Hal Weeks. Thanks for stalking the wild Autoharp, and I'll be back next week. Bye-bye.